Hi, I'm Alex, and in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to play the game Methodology, The Murder on the Links, designed by Justin Waggle and published by Grey Wolf Games. Now, Methodology is a game that mixes social deduction with card management. In the game, each player will take on the role of the investigator, trying to figure out the identities of their opponent's cards, while simultaneously taking on the role of the suspect, keeping their own cards' identities a secret. Now, first, before we get onto gameplay and rules, a note. Now, Methodology, The Murder on the Links is based on the Agatha Christie novel of the same title. But if you don't have any previous knowledge of the book or the mystery, don't worry. There is none needed to play and enjoy this game. And on the other hand, if you do have previous knowledge, it will not give you any sort of one-up against other players who may not have as much knowledge as yourself. Now, that being said, let's go off and look at components and the setup. In the box, you will find 4 boards. First, a scoring board, which you can just put on the table out of the way, as we won't be using it until the end of the game. And next, you will find 3 boards that all have 18 pictures on them. First, the character board, the locations board, and the object board. Now place these on the table so that everyone can see each board, and you'll want to put them in order, with the character board being first and the object board being last. Next, you will have 3 decks of cards, and you guessed it, they are the characters, the locations, and the objects. Now after you've shuffled each thoroughly, place them on the table next to their corresponding boards. Now, have each player choose one of the player tokens. And these are the 6 larger tokens that have a color on one side, white on the other, and they will have the symbol that will be associated with your player for the rest of the game. Now, in our situation, we're going to set up for a 4-player game, and so I will remove the footprints and the mustaches from play, and I will choose to be the gray keys, leaving these other 3 to be my opponents. After that, you can find your scoring token, a small token that is the exact same symbol and color as yours, double-sided, that you can then just set aside next to the scoreboard as it won't be used until the end. Then, collect your 15 target tokens. Now, these tokens will be yours, and you can identify them by their back, as they will have, again, your symbol and color. But on the other side, you will see that in groups of 3, they will have the symbols of your opponents in white. In this case, we can remove the ones of the players that are not in play. So, again, we can eliminate the footprints and the mustaches, putting them back in the box. Then, deal 3 cards from each deck to each player to give them their starting hand. And finally, for certain player counts, you will draw some cards. And in a 4-player game, you will draw 1 location card and 1 object card, and then you will place these on their corresponding boards. And the way you do that is you take the card and place it face down on top of its corresponding picture. This shows that that card is no longer in play and no one can have it in their hand, and we will be adding cards this way to boards throughout the game. And that's it. You're ready to play Methodology. Methodology is played in 2 phases, and the first phase is called the interrogation phase. Now, in this phase, you will be using your cards in order to try and figure out which cards your opponents have, and this information is going to be valuable for phase 2. Now, the interrogation phase is played in rounds, and for each round, you choose a card or cards from your hand, depending on your number of players. In our case, with 4 players, we will choose 2 cards from our hand, place them face down on the table. Once everyone has done this, you will then all turn your cards face up and resolve up to 3 interrogations, 1 for the characters, 1 for the locations, and 1 for the objects. But in order to better understand how this next step works and why you might keep or play certain cards, we need to take a closer look at the cards themselves. Each card belongs to its individual deck, as we've already established, but the cards within each deck also belong to a certain set, which you can see written up here in the top left and is also represented by the color of the banner on top for easy reference. As you can see, Bella Duveen is part of the Interlopers set. In the top right, you'll see a number in a circle, and that number is the amount of points this card will be worth at the end of the game. Poirot here will be worth 3 points. In the bottom left, you'll see another number, and these numbers range anywhere from 1 to 18, and they are the ranking of the card, 1 being the highest, 18 being the lowest. We'll get back to these rankings as they're very important in the investigation phase. Other than that, you'll get the name of the card and a little flavor text about it on the bottom. At least you will for the character cards. On the location and object cards, under the name, you will get some information about bonus points. You will get the amount of points and which character you need to pair to get those points. As you can see here, Poirot's flat will get you plus 4 points if you have Hercule Poirot, and the handgun here will get you plus 4 points if you have Gabriel Stoner or Lucien Bex. Now, back to the investigation phase. So after all of the face-down cards have been turned up, you look around the table for whoever played the highest ranked character card. And remember, the rankings rank 1 as the highest, 18 as the lowest. Whoever played the highest ranked character card will be the interrogator for characters for this round. Let's say that it's me in this case because I played Bella Duveen and she's got a ranking of 6. Now, the rules of interrogation are as follows. You look at the card that you've played, again, Bella Duveen, and you look at her set that she's in. She's part of the interlopers. Now, everybody else around the table will look in their hand to see, do I have any interlopers in my hand? And if they do, they will raise their hand, indicating, yes, I have a card from that same set. Now, in any order that I choose, I can go around the table and ask them, what card do you have from that set? Let's say that 2 of my opponents have raised their hands. One says, oh, well, I've got the Masked Men. And the other one I ask says, well, actually, I've got the Masked Men. They're lying. Well, now I get to make a choice. I can j'accuse one person per interrogation. So in this case, I've got 2 to choose from, my 2 suspects. One of 2 things could happen after I choose to j'accuse. Either they have told the truth or they're lying. If they told the truth, they go, sorry, I did have the Masked Men. And now I have to get rid of one of my cards by choosing it out of my hand and placing it on its corresponding board face down. Now, if they were lying and I say, I don't think you have the Masked Men, they have to look in their hand and reveal a card from that set. So in this case, they might reveal Cinderella from the interlopers. They now place this card face down on its corresponding board, and now they are 1 card down. Now, I do just want to note at this point that during the interrogation, if someone has 2 cards from the same set that you're asking about, they don't have to reveal that information. All they do is raise their hand, indicating they have at least 1 card from the set. And you don't have to j'accuse if you don't want to. If you think everybody's telling the truth, or if you just don't want to take the risk, you do not have to j'accuse. After you're done with the interrogations for characters, you move on to locations and you do the exact same thing again. And then, you might have guessed, you move on to objects and do the last interrogation of the round. And now that the interrogations are done, all of the cards that were played this round are now placed face down on their respective boards. These cards are now out of play. And then, one at a time, starting with the player who played the highest ranked character card, so the player who did the character interrogation, you will draw 1 card at a time from any deck you choose. You do not have to replace a character card with another character card. You could draw from the objects deck or the locations deck if you want. And then you go around the table drawing cards 1 by 1 until everyone has drawn the number of cards that they played in the round. So again, with 4 players, we played 2 cards every round. So we would go around until everybody has drawn 2 cards. Now, in a 6-player game, you will not be drawing any cards, as all the cards will have been dealt out right from the very beginning of the game. And that's the investigation phase. You will keep playing rounds of the investigation phase until, during one round, everyone puts down their face-down cards, and at this point, if everybody has 3 or fewer cards left in their hand, the investigation phase immediately stops. You do not reveal those face-down cards, and you move on to the accusation phase. In the accusation phase, each player will be placing their target tokens down on each of the boards one at a time simultaneously, starting with the character board. Now I've set up the character board here as it might look at the end of the game, with most of the character cards face down on the board. After you've placed your tokens, indicating that you think this character has this card, and you can even place multiple tokens on the same card if you wish, then accusations are made. Now, each character will have one accusation levied against them, and the way you know that is by looking at all of the guesses on the board, and wherever there are the most guesses for your character, that's what we think you have. So let's look at keys, for example. There are 2 keys here and 1 here, so the majority of guesses are here on Madame Dubril. So in this case, the characters would say, "Keys, do you have Madame Dubril?" I don't, so I would answer no, and then we would move on. Now let's look at the hats. We've got 1 hat guess here, here, and here. So that's a 3-way tie, and in the case of any sort of tie, you will accuse that character of having the card with the highest rank of the cards that were tied. So in this case, rank 2 is the highest, with Martha Dubril, and we would say, "Hat, do you have Martha Dubril?" Unfortunately for Hat, they do, so they would put Martha Dubril down on the table, scoring no points for it at the end of the game, and we would also flip over the hat token, indicating that Key has made a successful accusation. Then, after all the accusations are finished on the character board, you move on to the locations. You do the exact same thing with your target tokens, everyone simultaneously placing them on the board, what you think everybody has, and then, with the majority of guesses, guessing which players have which locations. Now, at this point, I do want to stress that you should use the information that you have gained from the character board to inform your guesses about locations and objects. Characters are what pair with locations and objects to give bonus points. So if you find out that someone has a certain character, you might look and say, "Oh, there's also a location that would have paired well with that character. I wonder if they were going for bonus points." This information is public knowledge, and if you find it, use it, and by all means, guess it. After all the accusations have been finished, have everyone go around the table and reveal any cards they had left in their hand, placing them down on the table in front of them. Now have them add up their endgame points, again in the little bubble up here in the top right, 4 + 3 + 3, giving me a total of 10. But don't forget to also add up any of your bonus points that you received for any pairings, and then move your scoring marker to the number of points that you have. Also, when players are revealing the cards they have left in their hand, make sure you look back at the boards, because anybody with a correct guess now gets their token flipped over. This will happen if, say, a majority of guesses were wrong, but there was someone who still guessed it right. Now look at all of the boards and count up any of your markers that are turned over. Each of these will be worth 1 additional point. After adding all of those points, add them onto the score tracker, moving your score token appropriately, and whoever has the most points wins. And if there's a tie, the tied players all win together. One final note on scoring. On the back of the rulebook is a wonderful guide on the highest scoring card combinations. It's laid out by the sets of characters, and then within each set you'll see each individual character listed, along with which locations and which objects to save to get the highest card combination for scoring at the end of the game. And that's it. Now you can go out and play Methodology: The Murder on the Links.